Several years ago, I stopped into an antique shop, which is one of my favorite things to do, and I came across some old Life magazines, and especially this very, very famous Life magazine with the famous photo by Leonard Nielsen, who has now passed away, but he was the first photographer to really figure out how to photograph the unborn child. And this is the edition of Life magazine that featured the pictures really for the first time in a very popular way. This magazine was produced April 30th, 1965. And the title of it is Unprecedented Photographic Feat in Color, The Drama of Life Before Birth. And of course, if you've ever seen any pictures of unborn babies, it's quite possible that it's the Leonard Nielsen pictures that you're looking at, because they are everywhere. There have been others who have come along and done some work on the unborn child, but these are by far the most famous. And this is one of the photographs that shows the child and the little hair follicles on the forehead and the eyes closed. And just really, this was quite stunning if you think about 1965. And it's just a great magazine to have as a part of my library here, and something that I'm quite proud that I was able to grab at the antique shop. And the question I wanted to raise today is, when does human life begin really? Because we hear a lot of debate about this, and you would think then that it's a question of debate, but the reality is that it's not a debate at all in science. Every book that's published on embryology, fetal or human development, says the same thing, that at conception, you have the beginning of a human being who is living, distinct, and whole. And I just wanted to again make that case for you today, to know with confidence that on this matter, science and the Bible say the same thing, that human life begins at conception. What do we mean by saying that at conception you become a living, distinct, and a whole human being? Well, living means that you have a one-celled human being that splits into two, that splits into four, that splits into eight, and so on and so forth. So cell multiplication is a sign of being something that's alive versus not alive. So you're a living human being because you have reduplicating cells. You're a distinctive human being, meaning that while you're in the mother's body, you're not a part of the mother's body. You might be a different gender than your mother half the time, approximately. You have a different blood type. The mother might be healthy and the child might be sick, or vice versa. So it's very important in terms of science or embryology to recognize that you're living and you're a distinct human being. You have your own specific, exceptional, wonderful DNA that only belongs to you. And you are a whole human being. This is the one that I find that is most perplexing to people, because we think of human development in terms of putting together a bicycle, but the reality is we're not. We're not assembled with different parts. So you've got the frame, you've got a tire, you've got some handlebars. At what point does it become a bicycle? Kind of hard to tell, I guess. That's not how human beings are created. Human beings are created as whole human beings from the get-go, and they develop as human beings. So you don't develop into a human being, you develop as a human being through the natural stages of human development. So I'm 68, and I'm the same person that I was when I was 6 years old, or 6 weeks old, or 6 minutes old after conception. I'm the same human being. I didn't grow into humanity. I'm not growing out of it. I'm just growing as a human from the earliest stages up to age 68, and hopefully a few more good years. So there's no such thing as potential human life. That is a non-scientific response. There are human beings with potential, as we say, but there's no such thing as a potential human being. Scientifically, if you are only a potential human being, you are just as likely a potential rabbit or a billy goat, for that matter. So scientifically, you are human at conception, living, distinct, and a whole human being that's just developing from within. After conception, there's only two things that are added, and that is time and nourishment. The same thing that we are being provided for today at any point of your life and mine. So I just wanted to make that case, and because I think some people assume that because abortion is so controversial, the science must be controversial, but it's not actually controversial whatsoever. If you want to do a little more reading on this, you might start with a very simple book called Stand for Life. This is the book that I wrote with Scott Klusendorf, who is America's greatest pro-life apologetics teacher and helps young people especially learn how to make the case for life in a secular culture. In this book, we have several quotes from leading embryologists. And the point I wanted to make is that every book on embryology says the same thing in their own words. This is not disputed in science. For example, Keith Moore and T. Persuade write, "A zygote is the beginning of a new human being. Human development begins at fertilization, the process during which a male gamete or sperm unites with a female gamete to form a single cell called a zygote. This highly specialized, totipotent cell marks the beginning of each of us as a unique individual." I think it's quite stunning for us as Christian pro-lifers to recognize that there is across-the-board unity of agreement on this particular point. In fact, I was talking to a brother this morning who was just really puzzled by the fact that I would say that everybody agrees with this. Now, you can Google the question and find different answers. And sometimes you'll see them, doctors or scientists will say, well, we don't know when human life begins. And you'll look at how they develop that case, and it isn't science. In other words, they might be using their scientific credentials to make a philosophical case, but they're not making a scientific case. They're not trying to show you in science that the question is unanswerable. In science, the question is very answerable. Human life begins at fertilization or at conception. That's when you become a living, a distinct, and a whole human being that develops from within. It's not disputed. Some people who try to dispute it are really looking for ways to morally justify abortion by saying things, well, it's biologically human at its DNA level, but it doesn't have the same characteristics of a full person. So they make the distinction between being human and being a person. But of course, that's a philosophical argument. They might say, well, it's not self-aware. Well, that may be true. An unborn child is not self-aware. That's kind of arbitrary. Why do we pick out self-awareness as a sign that you're human or as a person? There may be many qualities that we might look. So that's very arbitrary, number one. And number two, even at 68, I'm not always self-aware. If I'm sleeping, I'm less aware of what's going on. If I go in for surgery, I'm not aware of what's going on. So self-awareness does not make you a person. What makes you a person is whether you have human DNA, and then you grow through different stages of self-awareness or a lack of self-awareness. And of course, as you get older, you become less and less aware of things, but you don't become less and less human. Some people have said, yes, but you have the potential for self-awareness even when you're sleeping or if you're in surgery. And of course, that is true. But so is the unborn. It has the potential of self-awareness. All we need to do in that situation is to let it grow and develop naturally, just like we let someone wake up naturally and they become more self-aware. An unborn child, even in the first few days of its development, has the potential of self-awareness. It just needs time to develop, and it will have it. So I just wanted to encourage all of you not to be intimidated by this assertion that we believe that and recognize that human life has value because of God's putting his fingerprints on us, so to speak, and being made in his image. But on this point, scientifically, all science is in agreement that human life begins at conception, and therefore we want to ascribe value to it at that point, and we want to ascribe human rights to the unborn because it is a human being. I really want to encourage you again, if you want to do some reading. This is the book that we use mainly for students. It's called A Student's Guide for Making the Case and Saving Lives. And it's very inexpensive, probably around less than $5. But it will give you some biblical foundations and some apologetics and science and moral reasoning to help you know what you believe and why you believe it. And that will make you a more effective Christian in these times. Thank you.